MGX Minerals is revolutionizing the new energy economy with patented lithium extraction technology, replacing traditional solar evaporation using low-cost, low-energy nanofiltration. The first system of this paradigm shift technology is currently being commissioned. MGX Minerals trades on the CSE, symbol XMG, the OTCQB, symbol MGXMF, and Frankfurt, symbol 1MG. For more information, visit our website, mgxminerals.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross.
Thanks for having me back, Jim.
Lower mainland BC condos have surged in price. Do you see a drop in condo prices starting any time this year?
Okay, so dropping condo prices for Vancouver, Greater Vancouver. What your listeners need to first understand is, yes, Vancouver condo prices have gone up. What they also need to understand is they have not gone up as much as the benchmark prices or the average selling prices lead you to believe. What I mean to say by that is the sales mix of condominiums in Vancouver has changed drastically over the last 12 months. There has been a shift to more expensive condominiums because first-time home buyers were given that $37,000 boost in spending. They still purchased entry-level condos, one-bedrooms. Those entry-level condos that they were able to spend an extra $37,000 for, the owners of those buildings, those units, went out and purchased another condo. There was too big of a leap for the owners, a price point leap, for those owners to move into a townhouse. Certainly way too big of a leap for them to move into a single detached house. So they had to make an extra step. And it's that extra step that's taking place in Vancouver and it's taking place in Toronto that is really fooling everybody. Because when you add an extra step in, all of a sudden the house price metrics increase based on that skewed extra step. Because that extra step decreases the impact of the first-time buyer sale even further. Now, we understand that that's the natural fallout of a housing market. It's the path that it always follows. We understand that because we're measuring these things every month and we're tracking them. So we track them consistently. We know where they're going to be. It also means we know why the insured mortgage debt and the uninsured mortgage debt in Canada have followed the paths that they follow. This is simply how a real estate market rolls out. So there are people in Vancouver right now who feel that they have to purchase a home. My advice really would be you should rent for a year. That's really what my advice would be. But I also know that your rental housing stock is not of a high enough quality that most homeowners would want to step into. In other words, they can't step up to a higher quality home and rent it because the jump is too high. It's more affordable for them to own. You also have so much information that has skewed the mindset of people in Vancouver, from the real estate boards and everyone else, all the analysts, all the academics, everybody who's just guessing. They all guess wrong, but they're all guessing, trying to explain, which they can't explain, because they don't know how a housing market functions, causing panic in the marketplace that is still there. People still believe that there is not enough housing stock in existence. For those price pressures, you may see this market go on a little bit longer than what's going to happen in the rest of the country. But your listeners need to understand a simple fact. If interest rates go up, you afford to purchase a cheaper home. When interest rates went down, you could afford to purchase a more expensive home. The causation is 100%. As interest rates are rising, you are going to see housing prices decline. Contrary to what everybody tells you, this is what's going to happen. You also have to look at the housing stock in Vancouver, or if you're in Toronto, wherever marketplace you're in, and you have to look at the new housing stock that is coming into the market. Because when that housing stock hits the market, what's different right now at the marketplace at this time in 2018 than it was in 2013 is that when that new housing stock comes on, it's going to have a big impact on the resale market. You're seeing that in Calgary, in Alberta. You saw that already happen back in 2015. Home buyers left the resale market and they moved to the new home market because there was housing stock available. That artificially clouded everybody's mind that home prices weren't dropping as much as they really were. Well, those home prices really were dropping when you look what was selling. It never got reported in the newspaper. But home buyers were saying, well, how come I'm getting such a good deal in this house when the news isn't reporting that housing prices are off 15-20%? How can I get it for 20% less? Well, because they're talking about the overall market. People are simply buying new homes. In your Vancouver market, there have been a lot of flips of the newer buildings. That naturally raises the average selling price because you're selling a higher quality condo on average. Your listeners need to understand. Don't listen to realtors and to real estate boards and to economists and to housing analysts who don't track the housing stock. When we're sitting here coming on this show every week and we're answering questions, we're answering it from a point of reference where we have the facts available at our fingertips. Now, we have spent an enormous amount of time collecting this information, years and years in some cases, and no one else has ever collected it. It's available. They just haven't collected it. And that includes your federal government. They've never collected it. There's a reason why we know what your foreign buyer counts are. Because we use government data to have those numbers. It's available. You just need to know where to go and get it. That's why we're always accurate when you go back and listen to the old shows. What we say eventually comes true. It always does. It's not that we are, as I've said in the show, it's not like we've got a crystal ball. It's simply this is how markets roll out. So your condominium prices may rise a little bit further going forward. Don't look at year-over-year comparisons. Only be looking at month-over-month comparisons. You can look at year-over-year if you track it for a few years and you're tracking it each month, but you can't look at it because the real estate board says the benchmark price is up 20%. That's a useless number. You need to be tracking, oh, well, in Toronto, year-over-year housing prices may be up, but the truth of the matter is they're down 15-20% from where they were at May of last year. It's going to take that much longer for the market to roll over. And then when it rolls over, everybody says, oh, wow, what happened? Did that happen overnight? No, it didn't. It's been rolling over for over a year, just you didn't know it was happening. You weren't recording the market. You don't know what signs to look for. Same things in Vancouver. All of a sudden, Think Poll comes out with a survey of all the single detached homes that are selling for under 20% less than what they were at a year ago, let alone what they would have sold for at the peak of the market. I was talking to a real estate sales rep, called me today. It was looking for some advice, a fellow I used to know. And he's got a relative of his that wants to buy. And he was asking me, Ross, can you give me any insight where to buy here? And he was talking about buying one of the outside of Hamilton subdivisions. And I explained to him, why would you do that? Buy a townhouse in this Hamilton, outer limits of Hamilton subdivision, when you can buy the exact same townhouse for the exact same price in Oakville. And you know that not only is Oakville a better deal, because the properties in that neighborhood are far more expensive than they are in this Hamilton versus this Hamilton suburb, but your property taxes are also less there. It's a massive difference in property tax. The amount of property tax almost makes up $50,000 worth of mortgage. If you're buying a home, whether it's a condominium or a house, and you don't understand how all these numbers work together, you're going to lose hundreds of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. It's as simple as that, Jim.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after the break.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt's C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, Global News reported on money laundering and real estate. Now, that was always something that people suspected that was going on, and did the government turn a blind eye to it until this moment?
Well, I think if your listeners go back to our shows from around May of 2016, where we came out with our report, Currency Exchange Ponzi Scheme, which was explaining how foreign money from China could be used to purchase real estate on paper, which was then flipped to another Chinese buyer, which was then flipped to another Chinese buyer, which was then flipped to another Chinese buyer, increasingly with each flip, simply to mitigate exchange rates changing between Canadian dollar and the Chinese yuan. That report from back in 2016 didn't use the words money laundering, because to me at that time it was simply an outrageous statement for someone to come out with. I thought it was outrageous enough when we said that it was a currency exchange Ponzi scheme, which really is just another word for money laundering, because you can use this strategy to money launder even within Canada, let alone with foreign currency. So I believe these reports, Jim, are highly probable that these activities, it's highly likely that they were underway. Back in May of 2016, when we came out with the report, we mentioned that there was about a $10 billion hole in the mortgage financing industry in British Columbia. In other words, in order for housing prices to increase what they had increased at, we needed to see an extra $10 billion of money loaned in the province of British Columbia that never appeared. That money never appeared. When that money doesn't appear, it means that capital had to come from somewhere else. which we believe was through a currency exchange Ponzi scheme or a money laundering Ponzi scheme, is what's being reported by Global now. I think that's Sam Cooper who's reporting it. I believe it to be true, Jim. I believe that the lack of oversight in the province of British Columbia may go down in the history of Canada as the greatest lack of oversight ever undertaken in the housing market, whether it's FINTRAC forms not being completed on suspicious transactions by real estate brokerages in the province, which they have a legal obligation to do, which they received years and years of training from the Canadian warnings from the Canadian Real Estate Association that they were supposed to be filling these forms out. Whether it's the banks who didn't report when money was coming into their branches from foreign sources, which again there is a legal requirement. The only people who didn't have to report are the lawyers, because they went to the BC Supreme Court and won that case, maintaining their client confidentiality agreements. Then you also have the CRA out in British Columbia, or in Canada for that matter. Because what your listeners need to understand is that if you sell a property to a numbered corporation, odds are there was GST or HST, depending what part of the country you're living in, applicable on that full sale price. Full sale price. The second that you're involving a corporation, and the CRA could interpret that as a commercial trade in real estate, the single detached, or the residential real estate exemption on a resale home about GST no longer applies. Pretty much in every province in Ontario, there are clauses in their standard agreements of purchase and sale, or the agents are required to insert the clauses if the real estate board is so backwards they don't have these clauses in there already. These clauses specifically are there to protect people in these sorts of instances. And it sounds like those protections may have not been ongoing in British Columbia. So this global reporting that we're hearing, Jim, I believe it is highly probable that it's going to be true. You are going to be years out before you know the full ramifications of this. I believe that there is probably not going to be a lot done in British Columbia over this issue, because I think it's already gone past and the damage is already done. I think what the one thing I would love to see happen is that real estate brokerages, who FINTRAC has already said there are hundreds of violations in their brokerage reviews that they've noticed, I would love to see a couple of those charged, because that would end it going forward. You would never see the opportunity for this to happen to continue. In my hometown of Burlington, Ontario here, I can tell your listeners in British Columbia and other parts of Ontario where their realtors weren't doing it. Until I left the business, I did a FINTRAC form on every single client I was involved with. I couldn't even receive my commission unless the brokerage had on file a completed FINTRAC form for my client. That included my own sister. That's how the thorough in my hometown of Burlington, Ontario, that the FINTRAC reporting was. We were scared, Jim, to be honest with you. $250,000 fine, 2 years in jail. That's what we were threatened with for a couple of years when this first came out. It just made good business sense to follow the law. Apparently in British Columbia, as this new money laundering disclosures are coming out, I think there are a lot of people that had better be worried right now. People who got into the real estate business, made a quick buck, caused all of this turmoil to take place in British Columbia, allowing the real estate boards to profit from it. What I mean by that is the board economists allowing to pretend that your benchmark price was a valid price metric, which in turn allowed home buyers to walk out and make a bad home buying decision, which continued to compound itself over and over and over again with more house price illusion, more of the home equity pyramid being built. Because why it matters is if this money laundering issue comes out and it's proven true and there are any charges, it could have big repercussions long term over home prices in British Columbia.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Glance Technologies owns and operates Glance Pay, a disruptive mobile payment technology now live in 16 cities in Canada and about to launch in the US. With revenues up 664% in the last quarter, Glance Technologies has the potential to be a worldwide leader in an industry projected to grow to $1.3 trillion in 3 years. Glance Technologies stock symbols are GLNFF in the US and GET in Canada. Find out more at glancepay.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, right now, governments are recommending carbon taxes as a way to protect the environment and are offering the suggestion that carbon taxes could lower the income tax burden. Then they say the money would be used to upgrade homes to higher energy standards. Do you think that would be a true result, or are carbon taxes just another big tax?
Okay, so great question, and a great question because it's timely on many fronts. Any tax that is brought in will immediately inflate home prices. The foreign buyer tax immediately inflated home prices in British Columbia. The foreign buyer tax applied in Ontario immediately inflated prices. While all the reporters and all the academics and all the economists were talking about the housing market turning the next month, what I'll tell you is what these taxes, whenever a tax is applied, someone has to pay for it. And that means it's passed on to the home buyer. The same thing is true about this carbon tax that they're talking about, and they're saying how it's going to possibly lower income tax, and that will cause people to take the money, their income tax money, and go out and spend it. And they're going to retrofit their homes to make their homes more energy efficient is the natural argument that goes along with this story. And I'll tell you it's a story because of this reason. Why would any government brag about increasing household consumption in Canada? The very worst thing for the Canadian economy is to ask more out of it on household consumption. The very worst thing any government could be doing would be saying, this is going to turn into upgrades of the family home renovations, energy retrofits. The reason why it's the worst thing is because inevitably that leads to more mortgage debt. The homeowner who has a house who spends $10,000 putting a new furnace in it because he wants to be more energy efficient for his home never ever recovers that $10,000. I can assure your listeners you never, ever recover the cost of the windows, the new windows that they convince you to buy to put in your house to save energy. It doesn't happen. The furnace doesn't happen. The air conditioning doesn't happen. Extra insulation, maybe that happens. And you know why, Jim? Because with the insulation, you only have to do it once. With a furnace, depending on the type of furnace you buy, you're probably now going to have to do it about every 10 years. Years ago, a furnace would last 20 years, but those 20-year lifespans no longer exist. They're building furnaces, the types of heating systems, with weaker materials designed themselves to save energy in their construction, to be more responsible materials to recycle, which mean they're weaker materials, meaning the lifespan of your furnace probably is never going to be over 12 years any longer. Probably never. I don't care what the warranty says. So your cost recovery is that short of a window of time. So any energy savings is offset by that, let alone the fact you're probably going to finance part of it. These carbon tax shifters to household consumption arguments are ignorant to how people interact with their homes and they interact with their taxes. If you're relying on consumer consumption to drive your economy, sooner or later, it's going to catch up with itself and it's going to cause a massive recession. The reason why we don't like to hear all the negative commentary about mortgage debt is because we know in Canada, Canadians right now can handle their mortgage debt. As interest rates gradually rise over time, they could still navigate their mortgage debt. Unemployment is the issue that triggers a major problem with the economy, because then people can no longer afford their homes. It's when you lose your job, you run out of unemployment insurance, or the unemployment insurance no longer covers your mortgage, that you get into trouble. Because then no one's your friend anymore. You go into the bank to refinance, it's too late. The bank's no longer your friend. If I can give any advice to any of your listeners out there who are listening, who currently own a home, the people who don't think they need to do anything with their mortgage or the financing, that is the time when you need to go to the bank and you need to set yourself up for a calamity. That's the moment when you have your most power over the bank. Your terms on your home equity line of credit are going to be cost you the lowest. The mortgage you're able to take out is going to be the largest it could be at the lowest interest rate possible. It's when you are in a position of power that you need to secure your future. When you hear crazy comments that by adding a carbon tax, that's naturally going to cause humans the homeowner behavior to change, that's going to automatically cause household consumption to increase, you know you have a problem. Your listeners need to take advantage while they're in a power position. If I own a condominium in British Columbia, right now, I am talking to a mortgage broker, who I'm paying, by the way. They're not going to be going out there capitalizing on what my information is or taking advantage of me. I'm going to pay them a specific fee to give me mortgage advice. The mortgage advice I want from them is, how should my home ownership situation be structured today to protect myself should a housing collapse take place? And your listeners should understand this. You should heed this warning. Get out there right now while you have the opportunity and protect your future. Do it by looking at your mortgage for a next 15-year window. Look at the worst case scenario to your ability to make a mortgage payment and govern yourself accordingly.
Ross, thank you so much for the update.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jim.
My guest has been home ownership consultant Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. You're listening to HoweStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at HoweStreet. Our popular YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show or for our guests can be sent to info@HoweStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HoweStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HoweStreet.com radio is a production of HoweStreet Media Incorporated.